Hello friends, welcome. This is Madan. In this demo, we are going to learn how to localize our Windows Form applications and make it available in different languages. So without doing any delay, let's get started. So here I have opened the Visual Studio 2019 RC, but you can follow along with any version of the Visual Studio. So let's go over and create a new project here. And then I'm going to create a Windows Form application. Let's click on next, and then let's say it localize, and then click on create. So let's create a basic form with few controls and then localize that. So I'm going to click add few labels here, click on label, and let's copy this and make another label here. So we have got two labels. Now I'm going to add a few text box 1, and then let's make it little bit wider. Let's click on, let's copy this. So we have two label, two text box, and let's add few button here. So let's add one button here, button, copy this, paste for 2 times. Okay, so here is our basic form. Now let's change the label of those controls and drag it here, label 1. Let's assume we are designing a login form in multiple languages, so let's give it a name of username. For this label, let's call it pss password, and let's say login, and then let's name this button as English button, ENGLISH, English, and let's call this Nepali here. And then let's also change the label of this form, which is currently form 1. So let's say login, and login. So if we run this application right at the moment, then we will see the basic plain Windows form with those controls in default English language. So here is our form. Now let's localize this. In order to localize, we need to click on this form here and make sure the form is selected here, and let's scroll down up to the design, and here we need to set the localizable property to true, and then we need to add the language uh, we want to add. So for this demo I'm going to add a Nepali language here. So of course you can choose any language from the list. So let's scroll down and scroll down, and then here is Nepali language. So once our language is set to Nepali, we can make sure that by going over to the design is Nepali. Now we can change the label of this control for Nepalese translation. So here in Notepad I have translated this control into Nepalese language by using the Google Translate. So let's, for username it is this text, so let's copy this, go over here and click on username, and then let's change the text of username, double click, yes, and then let's do the same thing for password. So this is the translation for password, control C, and the translation for login, login. Let's change the label of this form as well, which is also login, and let's change the text of this button. Let's hop back to the notepad and then Nepali. So once we do that, if we move over to our form 1, then we should see another resource file here, form1 dot any-np. This is the language specific code. So for Nepalese language it is any-np, and you will get the corresponding language code for your corresponding language. So this one is for our Nepalese language, and this form1.resx is for the default language. So right at the moment, if we run our application again, then we would see the language of the form in default language, which is English. So let's change this default language into our Nepalese language. To do that, let's stop the application. We need to go over to our program class and change the current culture of the current thread. So what we can do is we can use thread. Let's import the namespace for the thread, system.threading. It has a property called current thread, which has property called current culture, equal to, we're going to set new cul culture info, and we need to pass our language specific code here, which is any-np, any-np. And one more time we need to do thread dot current thread dot current UI culture. So in order to change localize our application, we need to set the current culture and current UI culture to our specific language using new culture info, and the same thing here, any-np. Let's save this, and if I run this application right at the moment, then we would see the Nepalese translation of our form. So here we go, our form is in Nepalese language. Now we want the user to enable to change their language on the runtime. So whenever they click on this button, English button, they should see this form in English language, and whenever they click on this button, they should see this form in Nepalese language. So let's close this, and for that we are going to store this configuration value in our app.config file. So let's go over to the app.config file, and we need to add here another section called app settings, and we are going to add a key called language with the value of, let's give it a value of any-np, corresponding language code any-np. And now we need to read this value from configuration file to our program class. To do that, we need to add another reference here. The reference is called system.configuration. So let's right click, add reference, and then let's select here system system.configuration. So this is the correct one here. Let's click on OK. Once we do that, we should be able to read our configuration file here. So let's create a one variable here, language equal to configuration configuration manager dot, let's bring in this namespace using system.configuration manager, and we have a app settings, and then we can pass our key from the configuration file, which is language language language. Now we can pass this language variable here, so language, and do the same for here, language. Now if we run this application at this moment, this will read the configuration, our language configuration from app.config file, and load this language any-np. So let's run this, and our form is showing Nepalese language. So if I go over to the app.config and set the default language to en, which is for English, then our form should display the English language. Now we want the user to able to change the value of this configuration file by clicking those two buttons here. So let's stop this, and for this I'm going to add another class to our project here. Let's right click and then click on add, and then new class, and let's say ch change lang change language. Let's make it public so that we can access it from another class here. And in order to read the value from the configuration file, I have a little boilerplate code here which we can, let's copy this code here and let's paste this. Now let's bring in the namespace and for configuration manager as well. And let's save this. Now when the user clicks on the button, we'll be calling this function here and we'll pass these two parameters, key and the value. So let's go over to our form and then let's click on English here, and then we need to create the object of this class change language. And so let's say chang variables chang change language equals new change language, and then we can call the method to change the value of the configuration file, which is update config, and we need to pass the key here. Key is language, and the key that we are using here language. And then so this button changes the language to English, so we are going to pass the default language code for English, which is en. Again, let's go over to our form and click on this button, and again let's copy this code here. Let's copy this and then paste it here. At this time we are going to pass our language specific code, which is ne-np. So let's click on here ne-. After doing this, let's run our application and let's try it. So click on start and our application is running, and let's click on English. So it is showing in English. Let's click on Nepali and we don't see the change in language. So in order to do that, once we click on this button, we need to load the new changes, new configuration data from our configuration file. So in order to do that, we need to restart our application. So let's close this, and after we change the language, what we can do is we can do application dot restart. So we can call this restart method on our application. So when we click on this, the application restarts and our new language setting will come into effect. So let's save this and then let's run the application again. Let's run this. So it is showing in Nepalese language. If I click on English, then the application restarts and our form is available in English language. And when the user clicks on Nepali, then the form again restarts and the language is changed. Language has been changed to Nepali. So in this way we can localize our Windows form application. So alright friends, this is it for this demo, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.